So, you know it was coming. We had to go out there and make this video because, of course, we did. It was brought up in the article we were highlighting earlier today when talking about Vladimir Tarasenko, but now, I guess it's sort of time to deeply try to explore how the future of this top 6 for the Vancouver Canucks is going to look like. So, I'll be fully transparent right here. I'm recording this audio before yesterday's Vegas game. It's April 12th, 3:43 p.m. It's raining here in Vancouver. There's been lightning, there's been thunder, there was actually hail and snow earlier on in the week too. So, yeah, I hope all y'all Vancouver folk are staying pretty safe and warm. Yeah, the hail is kind of much, isn't it? But either way, this audio is being recorded before the Vegas game, so if JT Miller goes out there and gets himself a hat trick, then the numbers and the statistics might not be as accurate as we're highlighting here. But the reason we're talking about Boeser and Miller once more is because on Dan Rosen's NHL mailbag from last week, there were some pretty bold predictions as to where the Vancouver Canucks are going to go with these two players for next season. We already highlighted this again in the Tarasenko video, so apologies if you saw that video and are watching this one and getting the same rundown, but just in case you hadn't seen that previous video, this is indeed from April 5th, 2022, the mailbag, Kane and Toews' future with the Blackhawks, plus the Sabres' growth. NHL.com's Dan Rosen answers your weekly questions. The first question on here by J. Rinitska. Yeah, I tried rereading that a few times. It doesn't really work in my head, so I apologize to this individual. Which of these guys will still be with their current teams when the puck drops next October? Kane, Toews, DeBrincat, Boeser, Miller, Strome, Mackenzie Blackwood, Chychrun, Klingberg, Tarasenko, and Forsberg. Dan Rosen goes out there and says that the 3 Chicago guys, Kane, Toews, and DeBrincat, plus Forsberg, plus Blackwood, plus Chychrun, are going to stay. And he says that Boeser, Miller, Strome, Klingberg, and Tarasenko are all going to be on other NHL teams. Now, to me, just highlighting the idea, hearing that verbally, Boeser and Miller, both of them. We're not losing one of them next season, it's gonna be both. Like, to me, that just seems so surreal, because I don't know about you, but I've sort of found a new affinity that I hadn't had before for this specific core. I know there's a lot of other guys on the team that don't really show their worth, etc., but you think about the bubble and the playoffs, and you talk about Miller and how good he's been at producing points, and then you remember Boeser leading the team in points last year in the shortened 56-game campaign, and so to finally just hear it verbally, acknowledge the idea that in 2022, 2023, which is gonna be a few months from now, it's April, so May, June, July, August, September, October, 6 months from now, half a year from now, this Canucks team might not have Miller and Boeser at the same time. Things are gonna change, and I'm pretty excited for it, to be honest. But either way, there is an extended paragraph that Dan Rosen writes when it comes to these two players, which we're going to highlight in this video right now. The situations involving Miller and Boeser make me believe they're both going to be moved in the offseason. Miller has 1 year remaining on a 5-year contract that he signed with the Lightning that carries a 5.25 AAV, and he'll be 30 when a new contract kicks in. The Canucks want to go younger, so signing a 30-year-old to a big contract isn't ideal. Brock Boeser can become an RFA this season when his 3-year, $17.5 million contract with an AAV of $5.87 million expires. He's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency, and there will be a lot of interest if he is available. Now, Rosen doesn't go too deep into why these guys are even being talked about when it comes to a trade. Let's go over onto Spectre's Hockey from April 11th as well. Lyle Richardson writes about how reports out of Vancouver seem to suggest the Canucks will attempt to sign Miller to a contract extension this summer while attempting to shop Boeser. It's possible, however, that Miller also hits the trade block if he proves too expensive to retain, and that's kind of the gist of it right here. Miller is a very good player. Very good. He has never been this good before. And as we have talked about in several videos, it's going to be tough trying to find a dollar amount that works with what the Vancouver Canucks are trying to build long term. I get it, he's good. What's the point total he's at right now? 85 points in 71 games played. This is, of course, before the Vegas game, which would have been over for you, but not happened yet for me. He's good. That's an $8.5 million player when it comes to the point production and the impact he has. It's just, he's not going to be that for the next 7 8 years, or at least we don't think he would be because he's 29. So for the Vancouver Canucks, you kind of have to do the same thing you did with Tyler Mott when you acknowledge, okay, he has a contract that's expiring for next season, and you have yourselves two options, not three, two. Either you re-sign him or you trade him away. You cannot, absolutely under any circumstance, pull off the Dan Hamhuis Radim Verbata move here and let him go to free agency unsigned. That would be the ultimate L for a Vancouver Canucks team that is in the midst of sort of retooling on the fly, maybe rebuilding, who really knows. Patrick Allvin, Rutherford, Castonguay, Coronato, they have themselves a plan that has not been fully revealed. And so, if you go out there and negotiate with Miller in the offseason, him and his agent, they both have a contract number in mind that is a little bit too high, you have to trade him then. Like, sure, you have the option to wait until next year's trade deadline, but since the Vancouver Canucks are willing to go out there and actually take a few steps back next season, or at least that's what it looks like, because they're going to be giving Spencer Martin a full-time backup position with this team, trading Miller at the beginning of the season or in the offseason or at the draft gives you a lot more potential for more assets coming back. A rental for the last few months of the season versus a Miller for an entire year is pretty self-explanatory. Plus the fact that if you play Miller next season with the Vancouver Canucks in the last year of his contract, there's uncertainty, oh, what if he gets injured for an extended amount of time? All of a sudden that asset is no longer worth as much. For Brock, it's a completely different situation that, I mean, we've talked about this as well a ton on the channel already. There was an article coming out in Canucks Army the other day where David Quadrelli, fellow BCIT radio guy, as is myself, wrote about the idea of the Canucks exploring reverse arbitration with Brock Boeser. It's a process that isn't really done all too much because it usually sours the relationship between the team and the player because it would insinuate that the team thinks the player in question is worth less than what his qualifying offer would be signifying. And that's a process that I think the Vancouver Canucks could think about, but the way Brock has progressed over the past few months, as well as Rutherford and Allvin's focus on speed and building up salary cap space, it really makes me think that Brock might have just played his last game as a Vancouver Canuck. And again, we talked about how ironic it was that this might just be because of Elias Pettersson hitting Brock Boeser in the arm when he was trying to go for Ben Hutton in the first Vegas game in this little stint over here. So for Brock, if he has indeed played his last game, it sucks to see that he went out in the way that he did, but there would indeed be a haul for Brock Boeser on the market, especially in the upcoming draft, should you decide to trade this guy, because whatever money it is that you try to negotiate with this guy just doesn't fit the bill as to how well he plays out there on the ice, because I think it's fair to say that Boeser has sort of declined ever since his, let's just say, his prime days as a rookie. It's kind of odd to say that his best year was his first year, and we all thought that he would get better and better and better, and to be fair, he has refined other parts of his game. Defensively, along the boards, playmaking, those are all a little bit better now than they were back when he debuted, but the magnitude of how good he was as a pure sniper goal scorer has also waned as well. And at the end of the day, that was the reason Boeser was seen as such a valuable option earlier on in his career. So when it comes to the Canucks trying to expand on the idea of a Boeser trade, Rosen thinks it's going to happen. He thinks some teams are going to bite hard on the potential that a Boeser does have. And I'll just say this right here, if the Canucks do trade away Brock, you probably got to get a lot more than just a first-round pick, right? Turn that 23rd overall selection in 2015 to a first-round pick in 2022, and maybe another prospect that Allvin and Rutherford think is going to be good, and maybe even a C-tier prospect as well that might become a top-line AHL guy and transition into a once-in-a-while NHL player. For Brock, because he's an RFA, because the rights will be retained, there's a lot more value than just trading away a free agent to be, so the Canucks have to go out there and explore all options, right? Boeser is 25, so he is sort of technically approaching his prime. It's just that $7.5 million qualifying offer is something that you're certainly going to have problems with if Boeser plays the way that he has been playing right now for the next few years. So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Miller and Boeser and the idea of both of these guys. Both of them, not one, not the other, but both of them departing the Vancouver Canucks for 2022-2023. If that's the case, I don't really know how poorly the Canucks are going to do. Like, look, right now, they're still barely outside the wild card. They're not really in a good position to make themselves a run here to make the playoffs. Of course, I'm recording this before the Vegas game, so if they win, I mean, what is it? Their playoff odds jump up to 8% if they beat Vegas in regulation today, because I'm recording this video on the 12th, something like that. This team was already not in a great position to begin with. How do they do without Boeser and Miller? I'm not really too sure, and that's not even including the factor of Bruce Boudreau coming back or not, because apparently he's not the most guaranteed long-term option the Canucks could have for their vision of the team. But either way, let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about Boeser and Miller? Two of these guys, both of them gone. Where do the Canucks go from here, and what kind of returns do you think these players could fetch on the market? I hope you enjoyed this video, Rosen 99, and bye.